Hey guys, it's the Dusty Boy again. We've got 5 remasters and remakes that are coming up in 2024. Let's get right into it. In at number 1, it's Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, releasing 2024 at some point. So I'm a huge Metal Gear fan. I think I got way into it at a strangely young age. There was an independent game store 2 minutes away from one of my childhood homes, and it had a pretty loose policy when it came to supplying minors with age-restricted games. I think age ratings weren't taken as seriously around the time Metal Gear Solid for PlayStation 1 released. I mean, how mentally scarring can some badly rendered polygons be? So at the age of 9, I walked up to the counter of this game store, clutching a pre-owned copy of Metal Gear Solid. I think the double disc case of this game is what initially drew me in. I thought, hey, this game must be seriously long to have 2 discs. As I popped it on the counter, the man behind the desk asked, "Is your mum going to be okay with you playing this? I don't want her coming down here to have a go at me." I held my nerve and just insisted it would be absolutely fine. Luckily it was totally fine, and I proceeded to get heavily addicted to Kojima's weird blend of deep stealth gameplay and convoluted anime-esque over-the-top writing. But enough about my childhood. Here we are 20 years on, and according to Konami's schedule, this year we're going to receive a full remake of the 3rd entry in the series, Snake Eater. This game will be built from the ground up using Unreal Engine 5. I did question whether they would use the Fox engine when this was first announced, but I think technology has moved on quite a bit since the time of Metal Gear Solid 5 and Metal Gear Survive, and I'm hoping to look forward to some truly next-gen visuals rendered in the new Unreal Engine. It's my hope that the story content stays nearly identical to that of the original PlayStation 2 game. To remove Kojima's original dialogue and voice acting from an already outstanding game would really just tear the soul of this remake out. The same can be said for the soundtrack. I hope it's mostly the same. I'm pretty confident they will use most of the original music, as the reveal trailer made use of the original theme song performed by Cynthia Harrell. A change I would like to see in this remake is a more open level design to this new entry. I'm not saying open world, as I don't think this would work, but definitely bigger spaces to explore and a more seamless design to areas. In the original, there were some small loading screens between each area, areas that were relatively small in size. If these could be conjoined in some way and act as one larger area, this could be a very satisfying way to experience this game. Boss battles would also be improved upon by adapting this approach. Larger arenas with reworked boss fights would be a welcome addition, as after playing the game through nearly 30 times, I'm very aware of every trick Snake has up its sleeve to outwit the members of the Cobra unit. Finally, I'd like to see the deeper survival mechanics of MGS3 built upon. It had a brilliant camouflage system, stamina management. Enemies' behaviour would also change in response to actions such as destroying a food supply or armory. All of this said, Konami's reputation has really taken a beating in the past decade. From the departure of Kojima, releases such as Metal Gear Survive and popular IPs being squandered in favour of pachinko machines and mobile games, Konami has a lot of proving themselves to do. If they can nail the landing on this remake, I'm sure they could restore a lot of faith in a huge gamer base that are fans of Konami classics such as Silent Hill, Castlevania, and of course Metal Gear Solid. I'm also curious how much Kojima himself will be credited, but only time will tell. And in at number 2, The Last of Us 2 PS5 Remake, releasing January 19th, 2024. It doesn't seem all that long ago that we were blessed with the stellar sequel to The Last of Us. But time moves fast, and later this month we're going to see a fully updated version of The Last of Us 2 for PlayStation 5, sporting additional features such as a roguelike mode titled No Return. The game will be improved for PS5, running at native 4K and 1440p, as well as full DualSense support for the PS5 controller. Additional content is included in the remaster. Those that have been shown in the marketing campaign include extra lost levels, guitar free play mode, and developer commentaries to help you delve deeper into the process that created this much beloved Naughty Dog game. The roguelike mode No Return looks like it will offer some great replayability, whilst being a much more condensed way to experience the tight and visceral combat of The Last of Us, without having to commit playing through the story content. I'll be honest, since my first playthrough of this game, I haven't returned to the story and the campaign of The Last of Us 2. This is mainly due to the emotional weight of the brilliantly told story that touches on some really dark and painful themes. I feel like the human-on-human violence in this game is turned up to 10. It could often be hard to justify the actions of either protagonist during their onslaught of killing that was all driven by a burning desire for revenge. I won't spoil it for those of you that haven't played it and are still excited to see the conclusion of Joel and Ellie's story, but know this, it's a brutal one. I was close to tears by the time I finished the 30-hour campaign. Don't let that put you off though, it's a hell of a story and a brilliant game, so whether you've played it before or it's your first time, I'm sure plenty of people will be playing come January 19th. And in at number 3, it's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, releasing February 29th. After the roaring success of the first remake in this series, Final Fantasy VII Remake, we are fast approaching the release of the second part of this remake of 1997's Final Fantasy VII. Wow, that's a lot of sevens. Final Fantasy Rebirth will take us beyond the initial area of Midgard, and open up the sprawling world seen in its entirety from the original entry. The trailers released show our protagonist Cloud riding chocobos with his party in vast green open areas. I'm hoping that they really flesh out the open world with additional areas, story and content, similar to how they expanded Midgard in the first remake. Creative director Tetsuya Noura has stated this game will take place to a point in the story that mirrors that of the end of the second disc. For those that have never played the original, there was 3 discs to the game. Logically, this means that we should be expecting one more entry to this series of remakes. Gameplay looks to remain fairly similar to that of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, with an addition of a new synergy system. This is similar to the limit break system, allowing party members to unleash powerful attacks without using the character's ATB gauge. These attacks can also be performed by 2 characters simultaneously, with each combination of party member having their own distinct abilities and animations that work together. In terms of the story, it will be interesting how they rework the plot points to fit within the bounds of this new remake. Final Fantasy VII Remake could be seen as a retelling of the story through a different lens, so I'm sure Rebirth will follow this lead. Rockstar could really learn a thing or two from Square Enix when it comes to remakes. If you're going to do it and really respect your fans, this is how you do it. After the disastrous launch of the PS2 Grand Theft Auto remakes, a lot of people were left hugely disappointed. It's for this reason I have a lot of love for these Final Fantasy remakes and will be spending my hard-earned cash on the PS5 edition of Rebirth. And then at number 4, it's Alone in the Dark, delayed to March 20th, 2024. So I think this one took everyone a bit by surprise. It's a remake come reimagining to the first entry of the series, 1992's Alone in the Dark. This game was released exclusively for PC, with some of the later sequels finding their way onto consoles such as PlayStation 2 and Xbox 360. My first experience was with the Xbox 360 game, surprisingly titled Alone in the Dark. I'll be honest, I didn't enjoy it. It was a bit of a mess of rough ideas thrown together and didn't make for an enjoyable experience, especially when there were plenty of other much better horror games around at the time, such as Resident Evil and Dead Space. Funnily enough, the original PC Alone in the Dark could be cited as an inspiration for the original Resident Evil, with its fixed camera angles, tank controls, and challenging survival style combat in a spooky mansion setting. Looking at this footage, however, it does look as though Resident Evil nailed the horror aspect a bit better. This new entry to the series, also titled Alone in the Dark, brings the franchise into a modern survival horror genre, while showing off some updated next-gen visuals. The game also sports a pair of star-studded protagonists, voiced and acted by Stranger Things' David Harbour and Jodie Comer of Killing Eve fame. Much like Resident Evil 2's Leon and Jill, each character will have their own campaign and story. The trailer seems to show an almost noir detective-style mystery thriller atmosphere to the game, with some influence from Lovecraftian horror and interesting monsters to face off against. Of course, it wouldn't be a modern survival horror game without some challenging, sometimes frustrating puzzles. I'm sure we'll be replacing some missing fuses at some point during this game. My only concern is that the survival horror genre is becoming increasingly saturated, with games like the Resident Evil 4 remake, Alan Wake 2, and the Dead Space remake releasing last year. Is there room for another experience of the same type to make a splash? And will it be unique enough of an experience to capture gamers' hearts and wallets? And finally, the Silent Hill 2 PS5 remake, releasing Q1 2024. So again, we're talking about a Konami IP. It really seems like they're going all in on trying to restore faith in their long dead, once popular franchises. The Silent Hill 2 remake was announced around a year ago, and Konami have since assumed radio silence. 3 Silent Hill experiences were announced at once: Silent Hill 2, Townfall, and Ascension, and we're not yet to get much of an update on any of these. However, Silent Hill 2 has started appearing on storefronts, so many are expecting a release in the first quarter of 2024. This remake is being made from the ground up and adopting an over-the-shoulder camera like many modern survival horror games. There were rumours of a Pyramid Head origin story to be included in the remake, but these rumours were soon squashed by company higher-ups from Konami, possibly due to some misinformation relating to the sub-story found in the original re-releases, Born from a Wish, a story that acts as a prequel focusing on the character Maria. Konami really do have some high expectations riding on their string of re-releases coming up this year. If they really do deliver on this and the earlier mentioned Metal Gear Solid Remake, they could open up the door to even more remakes in the future, as they sit on the rights to some extremely well-loved titles. I for one am chomping at the bit for more Silent Hill and Metal Gear Solid games. Funnily enough, my first experience with Silent Hill was a demo included in the double-disc PS1 copy of Metal Gear Solid I mentioned at the start of this video. Whilst Metal Gear Solid was acceptable for my 9-year-old sensibilities, Silent Hill was not. I encountered my first enemy and was terrified. I very quickly hit the off switch on my PlayStation and exited the room. So there you have it, 5 remakes and remasters I'm excited for this year. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Are we drowning in too many survival horror games? Do we need to revive these long dead IPs? And would you rather new and different IPs? And how do you feel about Konami since they parted ways with our Lord and Saviour, Kojima-san? Please like and subscribe and I'll keep making these videos. I've been the Dusty Boy, and you've been great as always.